Hi everyone, this is the Heart Property Managers YouTube channel and my name is Winnie. So, one of the advantages of staying in a gated community, like I mentioned, is security. Like in the African homestead setup, I said if you have children, you are more or less family. So your children are able to move from one home to another, whether it's during the day or at night. When people had their heads of cattle, the goats and cows, you are kind of safe because you know the person living next homestead is your cousin, your great grandfather, or someone that you're very familiar with. So even cows would just be left to stay out. The same thing happens, security in gated communities. In gated community compounds, whether it's an apartment or standalone houses or villas, there's security and children can ride their bicycles and leave them out. They can ride around the compound without parents worrying too much that anything could happen to them. So that's kind of the similarity between the rural gated community or rural villages setup and the modern gated community. The other advantage of gated community, like I mentioned, is now in the village setup, children grow up basically with their age mates or age sets, their cousins, their step siblings, their extended family members. They kind of know everyone. They grow up knowing their grandmothers, their great grandmothers, and all that. Now, the disadvantage on the modern is, of course, children grow up with their age mates, but not necessarily a relation. And of course, in terms of now sharing cultures, it brings a blend of mix of cultures, but also it dilutes the African, can I say, the culture of people, because children now tend to borrow cultures from their playmates. When you look at the modern gated residential compounds that are now, especially in Kenya, you'll find a setup where you'll find all sorts of races, tribes, and all sorts of cultures. So when children play out, you realize that they borrow a lot of cultures, and more or less they'll be only be speaking a language that they all understand. Unlike the villages where children speak just their local language and they're able to communicate easily. In this other setup, the parents have to worry and you have to check who is your child playing with, is what kind of family does that child come from. And so some of those challenges make the modern gated communities a bit of a challenge. The modern gated community, this is my third point, are more or less highly and well developed to cater for children development, including adults, because most of people work 9 to 5, so you hardly get time to walk. If you're driving, you have no time to walk around. So the modern gated community also provide for amenities like gym, swimming pool, track, walking or jogging tracks, which allows you to also exercise within the same premises where you live. Well, when you talk about the villages, of course, the villages, you move from one village to another. There's a lot of activities, farming, people do things together. The other disadvantage, can I say, of the modern gated community is, like I said, eroding of culture and diluting the whole culture. Because in the villages, children would gather together and get their stories being told, their tales being told, they do singing games together, and they grow up, especially the young ones, growing up in a strong cultural background. And that is where values are developed. But now, with the modern gated community, most children find themselves very lonely. Most children are either locked up, or if they're playing, they have a playroom, or they're playing in a place where they're riding their bicycles. So I think modern day children grow up more lonely than the children that are growing up in the village at the moment, in the setup of the village setup of gated community. The other advantage of a gated community is in terms of cost. I think if you're building a house as an individual in a piece of land, and when the houses are built together, normally the developer get material in bulk. So the cost of purchase or buying a house in a gated community, I think is way cheaper. If you look at it that way, it's probably cheaper. or less stressful, if not cheaper, less stressful than building your own home. So the modern gated community also has an advantage of shared cost. You share security, the cost of garbage, you kind of have common plumbing, plumbers, electricians, and all these that are always available and close by. So the modern gated communities has so much advantage for someone who is living in urban areas, but it wants you to do more, especially if you have young children, to make sure that the people they're interacting with or the values they're picking from this kind of setup will actually help them grow and become better humans in future. So we've broken this down very well. You can check it on the link below. On our description box, you'll see how we broken down the pros and cons of staying in a gated community in the current modern setup. So, additionally, I want to share information about why I decided that this was going to be a very interesting topic to talk about on our video today. I arrived at this gated community, which is brand new, newly developed, and of course they attract very good rent. Kiambu Road in Nairobi is one of those areas that has many high-end gated community compounds. But I want to highlight a few things that I feel has brought a lot of controversy and has also created tension in the gated communities development in Nairobi. So one of those is service charge. Service charge is normally an allocation that is given per homeowner to pay, and service charge caters for the cleanliness of common areas, lighting in common areas, security if there's a gated community with common shared security, garbage collection, and any other repairs and damages that happen, water pumping charges, and all that. So most of the time, the estate will come up with the total expenses, um, expected expenses, so to say, like the electricity bills, like electricity bills, water bill charges, security charges, and then they come up with a figure that each homeowner is required to pay in order to be able to maintain the estate. So here is where conflict arises, because some people buy properties and they actually buy them for investment. They actually don't live in those particular gated communities or apartments. They buy as an investment. So for example, someone has bought a 2-bedroom house for an investment. They have a tenant in it, and so if the rent is like 50,000, service charge is 5,000 shillings. In some cases, the tenant is paying this 5,000 shillings to the homeowner, who does not remit the same service charge to the management company. In such cases, you find so much conflict because the tenant will be denied water, the water will be disconnected, they'll be denied access, and there's so much drama, especially on service charge allocation, because for some residents, there are people who have vested interest in service charge among the homeowners that are creating exorbitant prices for people to pay, and they are benefiting from it. So if you notice most of this as a property manager, even during most of the time when people have AGMs for the homeowners, most homeowners who actually don't reside in such facilities don't show up for such AGMs. So you might be suffering, but the homeowner probably is not even in the country. They have no idea what is going on. Please like, subscribe, and join the family of Hati Property Managers as we continue sharing with you. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that despite the proliferation of gated communities, anyone who is interested in buying a gated community compound house should do a lot of background check. do a lot of background check, just find out more and more information, because remember, you're going to be living with people, you're not going to be living in isolation, and all the conduct of other neighbors have an impact on you, how your neighbors are. And gated communities in some areas have been known to have proliferation of illegal arms, illegal drugs, all these illegal activities going on in gated communities. So if you have young children, if you have teenagers, you have small children, you want them to grow up in an environment that is safe, secure, and will allow them to grow without having negative influences. So the drama in gated communities, even apartments, we've seen in many cases in Kenya where residents come out to complain. I think the majority that I've seen, the one of the biggest problem is the service charge fee, how much service charge is collected, how it is being used, who is collecting it, the general management of service charge. The other problem that I noted in many gated communities is water scarcity, that most developers do not factor in the demand for water as a resource. And therefore, once the properties are occupied, you realize that there's such a serious problem with water, and residents somehow get to turn a beautiful space to somewhere where everybody is rushing for this commodity. The other problem I've noted with many gated communities, especially apartment blocks, is the issue of parking. When people sign their sale agreement, they never take key note on whether the property is being sold with or without a parking allocation for any apartment. Like in your sale agreement, it should specifically read if you're buying a bedroom apartment and it comes with parking or it doesn't come with parking. Many people assume, they just assume you buy a property and you want to occupy the parking right in front of your window because in your assumption that should be belonging to you. No, 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 no. So if you look at this particular gated community, this is Four-Way Junction Estate along Kiambu Road. Like I said, the gated community provides an ideal environment for kids. They can ride their bicycles. Like Four Junction is really well maintained. The developer had a futuristic mind. It has a lot of green. The houses are generally very, very beautiful. This is a three-bedroom villa. And just look at the massive garden that it provides. I remember when this house was sold, I think it was being sold at 8 million in 2012 or 2014. Right now, the same house is about 30 million. So I think those who invested in Four Ways, despite all the drama that has been going on around it, did take a very good investment at that time. And that time is where Kiambu Road was a no-go zone. Now Kiambu Road is a blue zone, well accepted by the UN. So you can live on any side of Kiambu Road with no security issues at all. So looking at this kind of development, if you live in Four Ways, this is a three-bedroom house villa. Your service charge will be 6,000. The rent is about 120, 110,000. Well, originally, I think before this, they were paying 5,000 shillings. So the drama that surrounds how much service charge should be allocated, how this service charge is being used. And remember, there are many times that homeowners or gated community get into trouble with NEMA, county government. There always something that happens. Either it's how you dispose your garbage. The other issue that comes in is the issue of getting clean water. Nairobi County government does not provide enough water, but then again, residents are forced from time to dig deeper into their pockets to try and purify the water they have to enable them to get clean water. In my understanding, if someone does not live in that premise, someone is not staying within that gated community, but they own a property, rarely would it bother them. Rarely would it disturb their peace that you're not getting clean water, so they need to pay more money. So the gated community complexes are many, but I think majorly is because anybody who's looking is interested to invest in a gated community should really try and dig out more information. And I think when people begin to question who your neighbor is, how many, the kind of people that are buying that property, you probably might have not full control, but a little bit control of your interest. Apart from just looking at the location, just your interest as a human, that you'd want to have neighbors that you'll want to live with. So maybe getting into such a large gated community probably is not a very good idea. If you want to go into a gated community, I see people who are nowadays very keen when they want to buy an apartment, they ask you how many units are there. So anything below 20, they're like, okay, I'll buy an apartment where there are at least 20 units. And I think the reason why they do that, that it is easier dealing with 20 people than dealing with 500 people. It's crazy dealing with 500 people, trust me. And even most developers end up having so much conflict. I noted the other day someone was complaining that they signed an agreement to buy a property in an apartment block, but the owners of the apartment do not give you rights to, I think, to rent out the apartment to someone else. When you rent the apartment to someone else, they charge you. So the question is, at the point when you're signing the sale agreement, did someone see that? And if you saw it, how did you end up signing a sale agreement like that? That is just besides the point. But do not give up in getting a gated community if you can, because I think the future of gated communities is here to stay. Thank you guys for watching this video. This is the Heart Property Managers. My name is Winnie. Please like, subscribe to our channel. And we want to bring you more info, more videos concerning real estate. And we are glad that you're here. Bye.